Hello, folks. Welcome back to Learn Synthesis with VCV Rack. I'm Dr. Lawrence W. Moore, your host. And in this episode, we'll be rounding off our journey through what you get with VCV Rack 2 Pro, either Rack 2 Pro on its own or with the bundle. I'm including all those things and mentioning what's in which package. Tonight, we're finishing up with the Reverb module, the Convolver, and Soundstage. Reverb and Convolver come with VCV Rack 2 Pro. Soundstage is part of the bundle deal, or you buy it separately. All these things deal with space, spatial orientation, and reverberation, reflection. Some of the things you'll be able to hear easily on any device, but some of the things you might want to use headphones or some good speakers. If you are watching this on cell phone, you just might want to pop in some headphones because some of the stuff is spatial oriented. And if you listen on speakers, probably not the built-in speakers on your laptop. It would be best if they're spaced apart, stereo pair, so that way you can hear spatial locations and things like that. Okay, so let's get on with it. Okay, so I tried to call up a few modules that I felt would be useful for demoing this. Basically, MIDI input, and I'm going to use this Audible Instruments macro oscillator. We've covered this in Series 2 because it has, I'm going to shift between a snare drum and then like a sound that has sustain, so we can hear some differences in the reverb there. Since it's a monophonic module, and I do have velocity control, I have velocity going through the process module, coming out of slew, and the slew turned up just enough so that as you go from one velocity value to another, it basically slews out the artifacts that you would normally hear, at least in some sounds. I do have an ADSR on this. I've turned up the release time there. I know for the snare this isn't necessary, but when I switch sounds later, I just want to make sure I have an envelope on it for the sound with sustain. But this envelope is governing the sound from the oscillator right here before it goes to reverb. So the reverb tail won't be cut off by the release value of the envelope here, and we'll be able to hear the reverb just go off as long as it's set to. And that being said, let's take a listen to it. Here's the reverb module that you do get with VCV Rack 2 Pro. You don't need the bundle option in order to get this. And I decided to start with the mix all the way down, so you could hear what the sound is like without any reverb. This is our snare sound. That's about 50% mix, and then fully wet. Now, it sounds like, yeah, it's playing in a factory or something somewhere. You have time right here, which, let me zoom in a little bit more. Time right here. If I turn it up, you could kind of see it flex a little bit here at the end. In general, time is the length of your reverb tail in this case. I'm sorry, I am having some mouse issues. All right, here we go. So you see, as I turn it down, you see the tail pretty much go away. So not only does the tail expand, it seems like there is a little more space in between individual reflections. You don't hear them individually really like in a delay, but I don't know. I think it's mostly reverb tail extension. So this is how you would judge size of a room, and if you turn it up all the way, that's a pretty long sustain, you know, from a short snare sound. And if you were using another instrument, like something like that, and this does have sustain, and you could change the time. There is an input here, and basically when you adjust this knob here to the right, whatever you have your time set to, that's the amount to which CV inputs would push it higher in value. If you move it to the left of the 12 o'clock position, then the CV input would judge how much below the set value it would go. And of course, the more you turn it to the left or the more you turn it to the right, basically the larger amount of change the CV input will affect on the time in either direction. Okay, let me go back to the snare sound here. There we go. And let's hear some more of the parameters here. Let me keep it somewhere there in the middle. That sounds pretty good. And the mix is somewhere in the middle. Morph. Watch the upper left side of the formation here. Yeah, it's hard to see that, but there is some things going on here in the early part. This is called the early reflections. Like, for example, let me turn time down. So it'll sound like we're in a smaller space. Turn it up a little bit. Sorry about that. As you can see, I'm fighting with my mouse here. Something like that. Now, I have the morph turned all the way up. Now listen as we turn it down. You hear how it's changing this early reflection area of the sound. This is where you can kind of like take smaller room environments and kind of, you know, at these lower time settings and kind of like change the sound of that space. So that's what the morph is. It's really dealing with a lot of the early reflections and how it integrates with the rest of the sound. I'm gonna leave it down for now. We do have here a high pass and a low pass, and this affects, I'm going to turn up mix all the way. This affects the wet aspect of the sound. This mix knob here basically judges how much of the sound going through is going to have reverb on it and how much of it is going to be the dry sound without reverb. When you have it in the 12 o'clock position, it's basically 50-50, equal amounts of both. I want to turn it up all the way so you can hear. This is low pass. It's turned all the way up, meaning it's passing the whole frequency spectrum. And then as I lower it, you see it's cutting out higher frequencies above the point of your setting. It's like a cutoff. Now when I turn the mix to like 50%, let me see, initialize, does that get me to 50%? No, the initial value is all the way up. So let's put it at 50/50. You see the low pass only affects the wet portion of the sound, the reverberated portion of the sound. Now that we're getting 50% dry sound going through, the snares, higher frequencies are no longer being cut because this is only affecting the reflected part of the sound. This is largely used that when you add the reverb and you kind of get the shape of space that you want. If you're hearing higher frequencies resonate a little bit too much for your tastes, you can bring this down and pull out some of those higher frequencies. It's not, it's one single filter, so it is a low pass and you'll be shaving up things from higher frequencies. If you want to do the opposite, I'm going to turn up the mix all the way again. We do have the high pass, which basically cuts lows. So let me put the mix back here so you'll hear some of those lower frequencies come back through the dry portion of the sound. Not a lot of low frequencies in a snare anyway. I could play it on a lower key, lower timbre. Oh, it is cutting some lows there. Oh, I have the mix all the way up. If I put it halfway, then, well, that's right, its initial position is not 50/50. That's right. So on the dry side, you hear some of the lower frequencies in the snare, but not in the reflected part. So this allows you to kind of like scale out some low frequencies that maybe get reinforced too much with the reverb and getting out of balance, or the opposite, higher frequencies that do that. Later in this Series 3, we are going to be looking at a module set called, they're from, well, the brand is called Mind Meld, and there's a parametric EQ in there that's really nice. So if you want to do a little bit more detail work with shaping your harmonic spectra, or the frequency spectrum of your sound, other than just cutting lows or cutting highs, you would need to use an EQ as opposed to just these single filters. Well, it's two filters. It's like a two-band EQ, just the high pass and the low pass. So anyway, let us move on. I'm letting everything pass. We're at 50/50, and we're going to hear pre-delay. You hear the space before the reflections begin. So, like with this 50/50, you hear dry snare, and then there's space and time before, you know, the sound would have reflected off of this surface and come back to your ears. And so that's what pre-delay is. That sounds not the most realistic there in the world, but it would be like a wall. The first wall or the closest surface is some distance away, and there's a delay before you hear it. So a setting like this might be more realistic. Of course, I'm playing down in a range which doesn't sound very snare-like. Yeah, I don't know. I was just playing around seeing if I made anything sound interesting there, and I did not. Okay, but look at all these parameters that can be controlled through CV input. You got time, you got morph, high pass, low pass, and here you have, yeah, we didn't get to that one yet. Width, that's next. But it looks like pre-delay is not one of the mix is. The pre-delay is not one of the parameters you can adjust with your CV inputs. I guess it's something that, well, that would be less desirable to be changing that over time, you know, while playing. Okay, so let's hear width. I'm going to turn down the pre-delay and turn up the wetness to see if we can make it more prominent. Oh, you know what? This would probably be a lot more audible if we were doing stereo. We're going to have to hook up stereo for later stuff anyway. So let's pull that in. There we go. Now we can hear width. There, it sounds very mono. And much more stereo. And that will be if you have a mono sound coming in. It does know enough, you know, from coming in the left input here to say, all right, it's a mono sound coming in. Let's give it a stereo perspective. The sound dry-wise is kind of in the middle. And then here you're controlling the width to the outside towards the left and the right in the reverberated sound. So there we go. That's the reverb. It's a pretty good sounding one. The only other reverb that I have covered so far is a spring reverb that came with Pafaco, but I'm sure there's other reverbs in other module sets out there that you can check out to see if you feel whether it is worth it. But since this comes with the VCV Rack 2 Pro, not needing the extra bundle that includes drum and soundstage, since this comes with that, if you want the VST capabilities and everything, this is one of the modules that will come with that lower priced non-bundled set. So in any case, let us move on here and go into, we're going to go into Convolver in a moment. First things first. I do want to give a shout out now to Paul JS75, fellow YouTuber and user of VCV Rack. Checked out his channel if you search for Paul JS75, or I'll probably also put the link in the description. You can check out some of his VCV Rack streams. He let me know through a private comment, you know, from my first episode in the series where I was just kind of playing around with these new things. Convolver, a good use for this, or probably what it's really designed for, is something where, if you saw that episode, I basically recorded with it. You can record stereo into it, but it's really intended to record like the reverb of a space. So, like, if I took this out to my garage and came in through the inputs here, it'd probably be best results with, like, you know, 2 microphones that are a matched pair coming in here, going into Convolver. And then you can send it out to monitor it. But basically like a matched pair, either in a space pair, binaural position, or a stereo binaural mic, or you could go XY, whatever kind of miking you want for the capturing that space the way you want. You could basically, you know, clap your hands, and well, probably you'll need someone else to help you. Clap your hands and then tap this button, and this will capture the reverberation in that space. I'm going to kind of imitate that now a little bit. I don't want to go out to my garage, so I am going to record the reverb here on a snare. Let's see here. And make it nice and wide. And I'm going to turn the mix all the way up. Now what I'm going to want to do is hit the snare and then try to capture, let's give it a little bit more time on it, and then capture the reverb after. Like I would hit this and then hit that. That's long enough. Hit the snare key, and then I'll hit this, and we'll basically capture the reverb from the snare. Now the thing is, it will capture within the sound, you know, the spectrum of that snare, because that's part of the reverb. You know, the frequency content of the snare is part of the reverb there. And what I'm going to do is just hook it up to these inputs so we can capture this reverb. I'm still having it hooked up here so I can hear the snare, hear what's going on. Because typically, you don't hear anything out of Convolver until something's recorded in. So let's go with it like here. Now, you got to hold it down. That's where I screwed up there. You got to hold it down until the reverb's done. There we go. So now, I am going to disconnect this from there. And we're going to not go through the reverb. Actually, might as well just disconnect these. But here's the signal of our snare drum. It's going to come in the Convolver here. And then we're going to go out from Convolver. Oh, don't do this to me. What are you doing? Here, let me zoom out. Okay. Okay, so now it's mono coming in, but stereo coming out, so we'll still hear the space. And then we'll look at some of the parameters here. But now I'm using the same snare sound, so this really should sound very similar to the reverb that we just recorded. Of course, we are on full mix here. Oh, that's right. It's probably like reverb where the initial position is all the way up. So now another thing that you could do, especially since it's giving us kind of like that snare reverb sound, if we choose a different sound, I'm going to shape the envelope a little bit better here. Remember, this is pre-Convolver, pre-reverb. Its release time's a little long. Sorry, I'm bumping some extra keys there, other than little mistakes. So, you know, I hear, when I play in the range, I don't hear a lot of the harmonic. I mean, like, for example, you don't hear snare all over this. We capture the tail, and we're largely getting tail. And now, of course, I set it up for a long time and wide, just so, you know, we could definitely hear it. but you're now getting which I imagine would be a lot like if you had gone into a like a cathedral and set up some mics and did your recording there. You could model that space basically. So there's a gain, like yeah, 12 o'clock position's pretty good. Anything higher would be like too much coming in that your reverb is getting a little too much, you know. But you do have mix here as well. You think the reverb's too much? Whoa. But you do get like resonant frequencies from the sound that was initially recorded to a certain degree. Paul said that like a clap might work the best if you were basically trying to record or model a certain space. Feedback. Basically, that is how many times, you know, because a reverb is basically like repetition of a sound to basically sound like a reflection off of surfaces within a space. And it's achieved by repeating sounds. And this feedback would be like the amount of times that they feed back into themselves. And so obviously you can get a pretty strong buildup there. But let's turn down the gain. Sorry, I had to sneeze there. I hope I got the mute button in time. But anyway, you can see it can be a little dangerous using that. We have high pass and low pass that work the same way as what we've previously seen. Like right now, let's turn up the gain again. There's a lot of low frequency resonance here, so oh, I didn't mean for it to go back down. There we go. And this could be used in other ways, like if you're not able to go out to different places and you know, record the sound there and stuff. I mean, you could probably use different containers and so forth, like large glass containers, like mason jars. Sometimes I like the ringing sound you can get out of them. Stick a microphone in a metal trash can, all sorts of things that you could do with it. But there was a good use for the high pass filter. And so when you do the recording, like if you were going to do like what I did here in trying to capture this reverb here, there are other interesting things you can do. I did try this before. There's a freeze button on the reverb, which basically captures the reverb where it's at. And you know what? Let's do that a little bit here. Because you really don't need to model a reverb that you already have, truly, unless you want to play a different sound into it and use that sound's reverb on something else. Yeah, let me try and capture. Go back to snare. And this time I'll play it high and capture it and hit the freeze button a couple of times. Then we'll record it into here, just like we did before. Come on, you can. I am clicking on this. There we go. All right. So, I want to be able to hit this freeze button as well as record button. So let's do this. Oh, but then I have to hold this down. I did this before. I'm trying to think how. No, maybe I don't have to hold this down. So I did this before. I was able to hit the freeze button up here. Now let's go for it. No, it looks like maybe if I double click it. No. Gotta hold this down. Trying to think of a way if I could send a CV. I know what I can do. The button on my keyboard. Here. I'm gonna make a MIDI gate. This is, sorry, just gotta check here. CC gate. No, actually CC is what I want, because this is gates from notes that you play, and I don't want to play another note. I just want to hit a button on my keyboard that will, for example, we'll find one here. Okay, so if I play this key, and then there's a button right above it that I'm touching. Let me see if I can get a controller value from it. No, it's not a controller. Oh, well, I didn't set it up for my MIDI device yet. Should be a controller. There we go. So 11 is that button. So then I can have that trigger freeze here on this. Okay, so that way I can hold this one down. Let me zoom out. Capture the reverb tail on this snare. Okay. Go for it. I'm going to do that again because I'd like to capture, you see this light lighting up here? It's working. But I'd like to capture earlier portions of that reverb. Okay, so let's do that. It basically freezes the reverb in place of where it's at in the reverb tail. We'll see. We'll see how this sounds now. Okay, so now I can disconnect you. No, I have to disconnect these because I'm going to go from outputs down here. into this module here to go out sound card interface. All right, there we go. Now, it includes all those freeze points where I was able to basically extend it much longer. You know, just a cool thing I tried earlier, and it was pretty good. So let's check out our last thing here, the sound stage. I am going to go, we're going out from our mixer into, here we go, just so we can see this better. You see how it gave me a 1 here? That is input 1. Basically, this is a sound source. Okay, now I'm going to hook up the outputs. And there are 4, A, B, C, D. You can do quadraphonic with this, but in stereo. A and B are basically like our microphones or our ears. Put them right here. And their position relative to one another, you know, does matter. If A is over here, the A channel will be picking up this sound based on where this source is placed. Now, we have a mono snare pretty much coming in, right? Yeah, because we're no longer going through any of those reverbs or anything. So that's coming in here. The input does have a level to it. So that's like our snare drummer. And this is the room in which the snare drum is. Let's say this is our left and right ears down here. I don't know distance-wise if that's exactly right, but it shows me dimensions of the room. But I guess you could take, for example, length, 9 meters, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. If that's 13, then center is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and right about here. But I would put these on the lines here. There we go. 13 divided by 9, I don't know. You could work out the math and try to get these positioned like ears will be, but I think we're getting pretty close here. And if we move this over here, you hear how it sounds like we are getting the direct sound, which is kind of like the dry sound of the snare. The direct sound is like within a room or space, the direct sound is that sound that's coming from a sound source and hits your ear without reflecting off of surfaces. It's usually, because it is a straight line, it's what arrives first. And then, you know, as the sound emanates, it's hitting the back wall, it's hitting the corner, it's hitting this back wall. The corner is probably ricocheting it around at angles. The back walls here are putting it around as angles, but we still sense them. Those vibrations do reach the ear and you hear them, but those are the reflections that we hear. And this is modeling a space like with a floor and a ceiling and the dimensions that we have here. And of course, this is your input level. And you can send CV messages right here for X and Y coordinates, which since this is input 1, the X and Y coordinates, you know, you could send in an LFO and have them, you know, go back and forth like this or something like that, you know. or anything that sends CV, you can basically affect your X and Y coordinates for each of your sources. We had another oscillator up here playing another sound, and have another source. There's 4 inputs. So, you know, if you want to do drums, you can go kick, snare, and maybe closed and open hi-hat, something like that. If you wanted to do more than that, then what you could probably do is have 2 sound stages, 2 instances open, and just duplicate the parameters from one to another. Let me see here if you can right-click and duplicate. There's randomize, initialize, which is the settings it comes up with when you first open it. Disconnect cables. Oh, I am not seeing it. No, but these parameters aren't hard to get similar. You know, you can right click on and get values, copy and paste values. And then down here, you have your room dimensions. And these likewise, you can right click on and copy and paste values or type values in. Another thing you can do is slide on these. Let's change the width of this room. I mean, drag on these. But you still hear that direct sound coming from over here because that's where it's placed. And then you're hearing all these ricocheting reflections going all around this space based on the properties of the space. You have that width, you have length. So yeah, pretty cool stuff. You even have here height. Let's make this a 10 by 10 area. 10 meters. Well, let me think here. Actually, let's make it 5 meters. I'm used to feet. So 5 meters, no, 3. I'm trying to make basically like, this will be an elevator with some pretty reflective walls. And now you can do the elevator shaft. Cool sounds as you change the parameter, but now let's just hear it now that the parameter's set. That's nearly 100 meters down. There we go, back into our 3 meter by 3 meter room. Okay, and then there's low cuts here. You know, low cut is like a high pass, and you know, a high cut's like a low pass. We're familiar with those parameters over there. Like, let's say I want to cut. There you go. 100 is a good one just to kind of, maybe put 120 if you want to get rid of sub audio. Whoa, I just hit enter there and this wasn't up yet. There we go. Got to right click on it to be able to type in values. Let's see here. And then you have your reflective amount expressed in percentage. How reflective are the surfaces in this room? Yeah. So this would sound more like, you know, a normal room in the house, drywall, I guess, or plaster, and then bathroom with tile. and then more and more metallic as you go up, and so forth. And then finally at the end, we do have diffusion. Oh, and I remember didn't we have diffusion in one of these, and I just skipped over it. Delay, width. No, we didn't. So let me give us a little bit more size to the room to hear this better. Here we go. I'm going to turn diffusion all the way up. Now listen to the tail of the reverb, like as it passes. You hear there how there's a little bit more rattles in it, and that's why I say it might be best to be using headphones here for hearing some of these subtleties. A little bit more rattle to it. That's basically like saying when the diffusion is up, right now it's at 10%, at 100%, you don't hear much rattle. It's like reflection in the room, and there's no interference, or shall we say like ridges or shapes in the room that would diffuse the sound and kind of ricochet a little bit. And that's what the diffusion is more about. Like there you hear more of a resonating rattle to the reflections. Of course, it makes more of a difference the larger the space. Here we go. That's 10% diffusion. 100, much smoother. You don't hear the. Okay, so it's a really cool thing, the soundstage. It is really cool. The one thing, and I just don't see the ability to do it here anywhere. Nice if you could set it where you have a different width for this part of the room compared to that part of the room. Make an auditorium, you know. But in any case, so hopefully that gave you a good tour now after these first 4. Where's this episode 5? I don't remember. I lost count. But these first handful of episodes here in season 3, hopefully you got a good idea of what's in VCV Rack 2 Pro, the professional edition, and then what you get if you get the drum and soundstage bundle in addition to that, or you get them separately. Now we will be moving on to some more of free module libraries that are out there. I have a number to go through, and in fact this will probably be over this series 3 and then also into series 4. There's MindMeld, a lot of great mixers, and an EQ that I absolutely like a lot. This is RPJ here. It has a great visualizer in it and some really cool filter options, modeling some of the different filter types that actually have different sounds to them. And sometimes you want a certain type of filter, not meaning just a low pass, but a certain kind of low pass or something like that. And it models a number of them. And then Kaitanju, I believe it's pronounced, that models a lot of chipsets from video games. There's like Sega Genesis I saw here, Super NES, I think, and I have to look through it again, Atari, and some pretty cool stuff. And I played with a number of these already. It'll be a while going through this one, but the FM synthesizer here, that's really cool. And there's ADSRs and stuff. I mean, basically a lot of tools that you can use together from within this set that are kind of made to work with each other and allow you to achieve some of those sounds that you remember from some vintage game machines and so forth. impromptu here, which I haven't gone through yet, but I got it because of the matrix here, the sequencer, and I'm going to go through these. So I'll probably be doing things like RPJ, Mind Meld, and Kaitanju first, and then move on to, this is simple, there's two from Hampton Harmonics, but the arpeggiator is really cool, and so I want to show you that. So anyway, that's kind of like where we're going. If you found this useful or enjoyable, or just want to help me out, please hit that like button. Leave a comment if you have questions, or um, anything to contribute to this topic. That'd be great. Comments are welcome. I like to encourage the community type of atmosphere here as this channel grows. And until next time, take care and stay free.